Well, I'm Jen Youngkin. A little bit of background about myself. I guess in spring I have been teaching for 19 years. And I taught like continuously fall, spring, summer since I started. So it's kind of cool. I've taught small classes, I've taught large classes, face-to-face, online, teletechnet, study abroad. I've done a lot of different kind of things. I've taught at community college, university, small private liberal arts colleges. So I've kind of had a lot of different experience with students. I'm also a faculty advisor for 1,400 psychology majors and a faculty advisor for a large student organization, PsyCI, which is the International Society for Psychology. So I have a lot of different kind of pulses on students. A lot of the things that I had to say here in terms of the large classes is based on learning theory. So what I'm going to do is kind of just incorporate some of these principles into, what makes all classes work, really kind of regardless of size. I personally find it easier to kind of do a face-to-face class with students. It's easy for me to make eye contact, and like personally engage students. It's a little bit harder in online classes. Right now, I think I have about 400 students and 2 classes with a very large, online demand in psychology. I've tried a lot of different things to get these guys engaged. It's the nature of online classes, though. You're going to have some that are kind of more engaged than others. I think the personalized instruction is kind of a critical thing in terms of getting them engaged. So how I kind of do it is through assignments and discussion forums and a lot of communication through email. I know, that's, they always kind of follow up, but it gives you a personal dialogue with them. And then there's the folks that sometimes just, you never know. You're like, okay, I've never heard from you at all, so I don't know. I don't really know what the solution is to that. I think that's just the nature of the release that we're in. All right, so the first thing, I'm going to use my cross-cultural psychology class as an example. It's an interesting kind of thing because when I first taught this class, I did it face-to-face with 12 students and took the students to Rome, Italy this past March. So now I'm doing it online. And so I was trying to think, I'm like, how can I get some of these, really cool applied experiences embedded in a large online class? So I'm still developing things with that. But I'm having them create electronic portfolios because it does kind of, I don't know, it makes it more personal for them. We live in a very media-driven, younger kind of culture. They're always selfieing and, and I know I'm generalizing. But a lot of them do social media, so that kind of is a forum for it. They can post pictures of themselves and, have more of a bloggish kind of, hey, this is about me kind of thing. And I think that works. So the first assignment, one of the things I embed reflection, constant reflection. So the first thing, what do you hope to gain from this course? What are the things that you're kind of looking to do post-graduation? So I want them to link the course outcomes with some sort of applied characteristic that they can use on the job market. A lot of the times they're like, what's the value of this class? Is it just like another checklist on the requirement? So to kind of get them to not think of that, it's really imperative to put the why variable right from the outset. Why are you taking this class? What's the purpose of it? So no matter what your major is, no matter what, that course is going to be applicable in some way. So that's kind of a cool expectation right from the outset. The comparison, I say the first and the last assignment because the last assignment goes back to final reflections. What is your takeaway? What have you learned? How is it applicable? Compare with your first assignment. Like with your expectations right from the outset, how has the transition through the course changed, from time A to time B? So how have you grown as a student? So that's an important thing, because then they kind of see that. Any sort of assignments, like if they are given feedback and they incorporate that feedback, how does that help them develop as a writer more? Another thing, the journal's the self-reference effect. When you apply anything to personal life, okay, so, for social psychology, I have them do this self-portrait assignment, which I'm going to pull up in my WordPress in a second. But one of the things is like, I don't know, just any sort of like personalization helps in terms of them retaining information from short-term to long-term memory. Okay, application, integrative learning. Integrative learning is a pretty hot topic as of late. Again, kind of one of the things that I have them do in an assignment is do an article critique. So, for instance, if we're talking about emotions in either social psych or cross-cultural psych, I would say for anybody who's currently learning teaching both right now, so in either course, I would say, how does this topic relate to something that you've taken in another course? So, for instance, aggression. So aggression, if we're talking about it cross-culturally, and we say, well, when we look at different cultures, it manifests differently in different cultures. So then if we go back to my criminal behavior course, or we go back to social psychology, and we're talking about nature and nurture with regard to aggression, then we can kind of say, well, if it's not global, if it's not a universal phenomenon, then we really can't say it's nature. And so they're able to start kind of connecting and synthesizing the information. And then we can take it a step further and say, okay, how does it apply to maybe another discipline altogether? And so they can talk about it from, sociological, criminal justice perspective. So that's an important thing. In the cross-cultural course, I have them do 5 or 6 journal articles on these different topics. So, for instance, in the study abroad course for Rome, we would compare Italian culture with North American culture on all these different spectrums, from developmental psych to emotions to social psych. And they would read these articles and they'd say, okay, here's the similarities, here's the differences. And then in their electronic portfolio, they put this matrix together that basically looked at each of the different themes, looked at the differences and similarities. So there is this nutshell. It's a synthesis of information so that they're able to see the overall whole. And that is another thing. If we look at like active learning, having them have a conceptual framework at the outset helps. And then we kind of end with it. So we're driving it home. So we already kind of talked about the final reflective assignment that I do in terms of how they meet the course objectives, but I also provide the departmental vision, and I ask them, how do these course outcomes align with our departmental vision? So that they can see, okay, they're looking for these if we have a psych major for these outcomes, and this is how this particular course met those objectives. And then I say, take it one step further and tell me how these outcomes align with an occupational choice that you're going for, so that when it comes time to articulate what you got out of this education, that they can actually do so. All right, active learning. If we look at the 4 components of Matthew's active learning, it's like a developmental model to teaching, to advising, whatever. We're providing this conceptual framework, the rationale. We have these expectations. We all have this in our syllabi in terms of here's what you can expect of me, here's what I can expect of you. And a lot of students are often surprised about what annoys professors. It doesn't occur to them that, having the phone out and looking at it is not a good idea. So, it's almost like you're having to educate them on emotional intelligence. And so, the discipline I teach, it lends itself very well to saying, hey, I can use this as a fundamental attribution error, where, if I do something and I attribute it to external causes, it could be quite perceived differently from someone else who says, that's just a lazy student. Not so good. So it's good to have that self-awareness, that, I don't know, the egocentric perspective, so that they're overcoming that. It's like the kid who stands in front of the TV and they're not aware that you can't see the TV. It's the same sort of thing. Empowering is another active learning technique. Collaborative experiences, even if it's just an extra credit kind of thing. For discussion forums, I encourage collaboration. If we look at self-determination theory, relatedness is a pretty key component to developing like self-regulated learning. So whenever you can encourage that connection, we're social animals. We're driven by that. So that's whenever that can be fostered, that's a plus. Another aspect of it is creating autonomy. I give freedom of choice. I'm like, okay, if I give you 6 assignments, choose 4 or 5 out of these 6, or if they want to go about it a certain way, as long as they're like getting the main things of what I'm looking for, they can construct it in whatever way that they want. So whenever you can kind of give them some freedom of choice, like if it's an electronic portfolio, choose whatever design you want, make it look good. And just make sure it has X, Y, and Z in it. The rest of it is your freedom. Grading rubrics really kind of take away ambiguity. You can say, okay, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, and you're doing that for every single thing. So then it's twofold. You're basically embedding constant feedback, as well as a very clear cut. Okay, this is why you got this grade, and if I'm like putting it in an Excel document and it's a 210, it's really hard to refute. And the expectations are very clear cut. Finally, building rapport, maximizing the interaction. I always try to make sure, even though I get like 50 to 100 emails a day, I try to reply to them very quickly, not even as quickly as they want. They're emailing me at 2 in the morning on Saturday, and then I have to say, let's talk about this. I'm not doing that. And I can't believe I'm having to tell you this, but okay. So they might think, geez, you're so sarcastic. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that. So recording demonstrations, even if it's just like a little cell phone, like let me demonstrate this in a 5-minute video and put it up on YouTube so that they can look at it, there's more gift of self. There's more, they see you as real, they see you as human, especially with online teaching. Like the more that you can kind of put yourself out there, there's research that supports that helps. So there's that. All right, kind of talked a little bit about self-determination theory. I'm kind of trying to make sure I stay within my 10-minute window. Competence we've hit on. So you'll see some of these overlapping good practices. Anything that develops like a sense of self-efficacy. And that's developed again through rubrics, constant feedback. I tell my students on tests that they take online, I will, in Blackboard, you can create what you want them to see. I let them see which ones they answered incorrectly. I don't give them the correct answers. They're always frustrated with that. And I'm like, but, there's a rationale for it. I want you to go and I want you to look up the right one so that you can learn. And your test strategy on subsequent tests will significantly improve because you'll see that usually it is your error, which then does develop an internal locus of control, which is key. And then they will start improving on future strategy. Autonomy we've hit on, and relatedness we've hit on. So all of these 3, if you can constantly kind of incorporate that will develop more self-regulated learning and thus more intrinsically motivated students, which makes us all happier. Yes. Generally. Okay, so enhancing competence through feedback. Like I said, we've got the rubrics, study tips. That's one I haven't hit on. The test results I did hit on. The study tips, basically, if I have this kind of couple-page document, which I'm more than happy to share if anybody wants it. But basically, it kind of goes back into the rationale for going and looking at the test results on their own and it does mention the total time effect. So the more time that you spend, the greater your success is going to be. Spaced practice over mass practice. Okay, Professor Youngkin, I don't understand why I failed your test when I spent 2 hours before that test. No, it's not going to work. And then depth of processing, basically when you're applying it. And I tell students to take this example and think about something like it is a personal example or something that they've watched in the news, or try to relate it and think about it in different ways. That will help. So there's that. Autonomy, like I said, I give them the choice to create things the way that they want to create them. I always basically say, education is one of the few things a person is willing to pay for and not get. William Love. And I'm like, if you got overcharged $2 at Walmart, you'd be waiting in a half-hour line. Customer service, to get that $2, but you're chomping at the bit to get out of my class. So there's something to consider, and I always tell students what you get out of it is what you put into it. And I constantly remind them, I'm like, okay, if you stay in my course beyond add and drop deadline, you are implicitly agreeing to the terms that I set forth in my course syllabus. So, both. I know, and it sounds a little harsh, but that's okay. I'm okay with it. There's no ambiguity. Relatedness, again, I kind of talked about anything that can enhance that communication between each other, between here and there. Peer review for my e-portfolios that I had my study abroad students develop, I had them give each other feedback, because really research shows that they're more concerned with the peer feedback than my feedback anyway. So it puts the onus on them, because they don't want to look like a slacker to somebody in their reference group. They're more concerned with that. So that's something to kind of think about. And also it shows some time off you. Anytime you can streamline grading, like with the Excel, rubric documents, anything, that's better. Okay, let me really quick. I don't know where my thingy went. There it is. Okay, so social psych, for instance, I attached the assignment. I'm not going to pull up the assignment, but basically what I have them do to kind of illustrate this concept of self, I have them go and pull pictures of themselves and say how these pictures kind of represent various aspects of self. In a sense, it's personality theory, like central traits. We can kind of capture ourselves in 7 to 12 descriptive characteristics. And so what are those characteristics of you? So for me, I said mom, friend, and then of course, that's my study abroad trip, and traveler, and then these were my students, teacher, mentor, these are my Sci-Chi folks, and then advisor, these are students I advise. So for them, they can kind of start seeing some of the roles that I play. It makes me more relatable, and it also serves as an example to what I expect them to do. Of course, they have to write more than this one sentence blurb, but I was scrambling trying to give you some examples. But they would put more paragraph kind of, why this is. Like for me with the traveler thing, I would say that represents courage, personally. Because, if you travel abroad, it takes courage, especially when you're bringing 12 students. So that's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay, we can get one question, and then get ready to go. Questions?
Any questions? No? Wow. See, now, if this were face-to-face, I'm not going to let y'all leave until I get a question.
I'll ask a question. So when you're teaching large lectures, do you ever encourage building some type of community of support where the students are looking out for each other as far as coming to class, studying together, and
buddy
Versus
system.
methods are-
Yeah, buddy system. So like I'll do like a couple like dyad type of activities, and then I'll say exchange information because I don't provide you with my lecture notes. That way, if there's any unforeseen circumstances, you guys can communicate with one another. Also, these are the people that I will assign as peer feedback people. And the study abroad course, these were people that had to keep track of other people, so that, you know, nobody would miss. So